All right, we're talking Batman, and we're talking Superman, and we're talking about talking. It's the second part of the DCEU Zack Snyder Trilogy series, or whatever it's called. Let's get to it. This first scene we'll cover comes just after Superman rescues Lois for the first time of I don't know how many times in this movie. Some mercenaries are paid to set up the incident so that it appears as if Superman killed innocent people, and in the original clip, this scene in the village is silent except for the somber music. The dialogue begins here.
The women in the village had a noise, like the sky cracked open. He came down, then came fire. Even worse came after.
And as we see, a woman from the village testifies before the United States Senate. This scene crawls along a bit because her testimony is given while we cut to the faces of U.S. senators, which doesn't really lend any weight to what she's saying.
The government attacked. No mercy in the villages. My parents tried to run.
The world has been so caught up with what Superman can do that no one has asked what he should do.
However, if we move some of her testimony to over the aftermath of what occurred, then the images we see in the previous scene can be backed not only by the fantastic music, but by her sorrowful words as well. But we'll see that in a minute. Let's finish the scene.
Let the record show that this committee holds him responsible.
He'll never answer to you. He answers to no one. Not even, I think, to God.
58-0. Metropolis again blowing out Gotham City.
Alright, let's now take a look at what happens when we allow images, words, and music to all work together. For this, though, we'll start back at the aftermath of the alleged attack on the village.
The women in the village had a noise, like the sky cracked open. He came down, then came fire.
So what we're doing is having the lady's testimony become a description of the scene, which allows the images, the music, and her words to work together to strengthen one another.
Even worse came after. The government attacked. No mercy in the villages. My parents tried to run.
And now, as we switch from the village scene to the Senate testimony, we get a smoother transition from the aftermath of the attack to the testimony.
The world has been so caught up with what Superman can do that no one has asked what he should do. Let the record show that this committee holds him responsible.
He'll never answer to you. He answers to no one. Not even, I think, to God.
Following her testimony, rather than cutting to two policemen watching a football game, we're going for a bit of a foreshadow by cutting to the bats. The lady says that she doesn't think Superman answers to God.
He answers to no one. Not even, I think, to God.
But Superman will soon be answering to the Batman. So we feel like that's a solid cut, and we make the same kind of cut for Batman a bit later. Let's take a look at that real quick.
Mrs. Santos, may I ask you a few questions?
He wasn't my husband, but I know what he did. But he was a father. He was that too. They took him out of Gotham Central. They moved him to Metropolis. But inside they know. They know the mark all over. Guards don't care. That's the judge.
So we have Clark talking to Miss Santos, the baby mama of a prisoner who Batman sentenced to death in prison by branding him. Let's see where this scene cuts to after it's done.
One man decides who lives. How is that justice?
Talk to me. Help me change it.
With what? Your pen? A man like that, words don't stop him. You know what stops him? A fist.
Kent, I want to talk to you. Kent!
Where does he go?
Alright, so the original scene cuts from Miss Santos saying that the only thing that will stop Batman is a fist, to Perry at the Daily Planet looking for Clark. That's okay, but we can add a subtle layer to that cut. Watch this.
Mrs. Santos, may I ask you a few questions?
He wasn't my husband, but I know what he did. But he was a father. He was that too. They took him out of Gotham Central. They moved him to Metropolis. But inside they know. They know the mark all over. Guards don't care. That's the judge.
Okay, so same start to the scene, but we'll cut down her dialogue a bit at the end to give the transition to the next scene a bit more impact.
One man decides who lives. How is that justice?
Talk to me. Help me change it.
With what? Your pen? A man like that, words don't stop him.
So now we're ending the previous clip with Miss Santos saying that words don't stop Batman. What does that imply? What will stop Batman? Well, we'll find out, won't we? Also, rather than ending with Miss Santos angry at Batman,
A man like that, words don't stop him. You know what stops him? A fist. A man like that, words don't stop him.
we show her in distress. And what happens when Superman sees someone in distress? He feels the need to save them. That leads Superman into action in the next scene as he attempts to stop Batman from being Batman. But before that, we allow Ms. Santos to give us the feeling that Batman is unstoppable.
Talk to me. Help me change it.
With what? Your pen? A man like that, words don't stop him.
Compare that to the extended cut of the film, which wastes time with Perry trying to find Clark, then wastes more time showing us what the bad guys are up to before finally allowing us to see Batman standing ready to go into action himself. Anyway, we're going to backtrack a bit to a scene in which Alfred confronts Bruce about what Bruce has really been searching for in his quest to find someone or something called the White Portuguese.
The White Portuguese is not a man. It's a ship.
Master Wayne, since the age of 7, you have been to the art of deception as Mozart to the harpsichord. But you've never been too hot at lying to me. The White Portuguese isn't carrying a dirty bomb. What is it carrying?
So far, so good. Alfred is confronting Bruce to get the truth from him about why Bruce wants to find a ship called the White Portuguese. Let's continue.
It's a weapon. It's a rock. A mineral capable of weakening Kryptonian cells. The first sample big enough to mean something turned up in the Indian Ocean 3 months ago. It is now aboard the White Portuguese being delivered to Lex Luthor, who I am going to steal it from.
To keep it out of Luthor's hands. To destroy it.
No.
Okay, so Bruce shares information about a rock that can weaken Kryptonian DNA, as well as his intention to steal this rock from Lex Luthor Jr. In response, Alfred asks Bruce if Bruce will destroy the rock. Alfred doesn't mention Superman by name, but he knows Superman is Kryptonian, so the conversation shifts to Superman now. Let's keep going.
You're gonna go to war.
That son of a bitch brought the war to us 2 years ago. Jesus, Alfred, count the dead. Thousands of people. What's next? Millions? He has the power to wipe out the entire human race, and if we believe there's even a 1% chance that he is our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty.
Alfred asks Bruce if he intends to go to war with Superman, which is too quick of an escalation at this point in the conversation. This causes the intensity of the conversation to go up and down, when what we really need to do here is build that emotion throughout the conversation and finish with some intensity.
He is not our enemy.
Not today. 20 years in Gotham, Alfred. We've seen what promises are worth. How many good guys are left? How many stayed that way? 14 hours.
The problem with Bruce's argument here is that he bases it on people or heroes in Gotham who broke their promises to fight for good. It's really just an attempt to add a second motivation for Bruce to go up against Superman, which is unnecessary. It's also not a strong argument, since Alfred could have easily countered that there were people in Gotham who stayed good, so why wouldn't Superman end up being one of those people who kept their promise? But Alfred just gives up for no reason. To fix this, we would need Bruce's last words to Alfred be a charge that Alfred can only agree with, which would end the argument in Bruce's favor. Let's take a look at how that would go.
The white Portuguese is not a man. It's a ship.
Master Wayne, since the age of 7, you have been to the art of deception as Mozart to the harpsichord. But you've never been too hot at lying to me. The white Portuguese isn't carrying a dirty bomb. What is it carrying?
Okay, same setup as before. Alfred is confronting Bruce, but one way we'll alter this scene is by cutting Alfred's question of why Bruce is stealing the kryptonite, because that only makes Alfred sound naive at this point in the film.
It's a weapon. It's a rock. A mineral capable of weakening Kryptonian cells. The first sample big enough to mean something turned up in the Indian Ocean 3 months ago. It is now aboard the white Portuguese.
He is not our enemy.
Jesus, Alfred, count the dead. Thousands of people. What's next? Millions?
Alright, so once Bruce shares the information that the rock weakens Kryptonian DNA and where Bruce will find it, Alfred now interrupts Bruce with a firm reminder that Superman is a good guy. Having Alfred get heated right away shows that Alfred knows that Bruce is crossing a much greater line. Up to this point, Alfred has calmly shared his concerns about Bruce branding bad guys who will be killed in prison for simply having that brand on them. But Bruce is now talking about going after one of the good guys, so of course Alfred feels as if he's reached the end of his rope. However, Bruce escalates the conversation when asking Alfred to count the bodies that have piled up since Superman's arrival.
He has the power to wipe out the entire human race, and if we believe there's even a 1% chance that he is our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty.
You're gonna go to war.
That son of a bitch brought the war to us.
And now we end with Bruce arguing a point that Alfred can't counter, which is a good reason for Alfred to go silent. Do you see how we're now allowing the dialogue and emotions to intensify without having to stop and explain much of anything? The destruction of Metropolis and the people who died while Superman fought Zod is reason enough for Bruce to want to stop Superman from harming anyone else. We really don't need the secondary reason that good heroes have turned bad over the course of 20 years in Gotham. Instead, we should end with Bruce seething that Superman brought the war to us, which not only supports his argument, but also ties into an early scene in the movie that shows how Bruce's opinion of Superman was formed. Alright, the final example we'll show comes just before the big brawl, when Superman confronts Lex Luthor Jr. on the rooftop. There's a lot of dialogue in this scene, and some of that dialogue is repetitious and can be cut to keep Lex from talking so much that he drains the energy from the scene.
Boy, do we have problems up here!
Great start. I love that line. Makes me smile every time. Let's continue.
The problem of evil in the world. The problem of absolute virtue.
I'll take you in without breaking you, which is more than you deserve.
The problem of you on top of everything else. You above all.
This scene begins with Luthor comparing Superman to God. So basically, Luthor takes the idea that absolute power corrupts absolutely and applies it to Superman.
I figured out way back. If God is all powerful, he cannot be all good. And if he is all good, then he cannot be all powerful. And neither can you be.
If Superman is all powerful, then he can't be all good. And Luthor intends to show that Superman can be corrupted. Let's keep going.
They need to see the fraud you are with their eyes. the blood on your hands.
What have you done?
And tonight, they will. Yes. Because you, my friend, have a date. Across the bay. Ripe fruit, his hate. 2 years growing, but it did not take much to push him over, actually. Little red notes, big bang, you let your family die!
All right, Luthor tells Superman that he, Superman, is going to be meeting up with Batman, and Luthor says that he, Luthor, made Batman hate Superman. But there's really no reason for him to say this. Superman only met Batman one time to tell him to stop being Batman, and that was it. So as far as Superman knows, it's his fault that Batman hates him. You could say that Luthor is bragging about setting up this whole thing, but when you look at the details of how Luthor set up this fight, it's really convoluted, and it doesn't need to be. When those details are removed from the film, what we're left with is Batman and Superman crossing paths, butting heads, and Luthor taking advantage of the situation by allowing Batman to steal the kryptonite that Luthor himself intended to use against Superman. This alternate take actually makes it seem as if Luthor is more of an intelligent opportunist than if he's pulling the strings the whole time and making Batman angry at Superman, even though Batman was already angry at Superman.
And now, you will fly to him, and you will battle him to the death. Black and blue, fight night. The greatest gladiator match in the history of the world. God versus man. Day versus night. Son of Krypton versus Bat of Gotham.
So, in too many words here, Luthor is telling Superman that Superman is going to fight Batman. We'll cut down on this dialogue and go with only what's needed. Let's keep going.
You think I'll fight him for you?
Yes, I do. I think you will fight for that special lady in your life.
She's safe on the ground. How about you?
Close, but I am not talking about Lois. No. Every boy's special lady is his mother. Martha.
Okay, we're getting into the part of this scene in which the name Martha is said way too many times, and it's likely done as some kind of a foreshadow that ends up bringing Batman and Superman together, which is the fact that both of their moms are named Martha, but it feels way too heavy-handed and ends up sounding awkward. So we'll just cut down on the number of times Luthor says the name Martha. In fact, let's put a counter to see how many times Luthor says the name Martha. He said the name 3 times already, so we'll start there.
The mother of a flying demon must be a witch. The punishment for witches, what is that? That's right, death by fire.
Alright, Lex's dialogue gets a bit confusing here. He starts the scene by comparing Superman to God. Now he's calling Superman a demon, which is not God. So he can make the connection to calling Superman's mother a witch, so he can tell Superman that she will die by fire, even though the photographs Luthor is throwing out there don't show anything of the sort. So there's really no context for any of this, it's just all over the map.
I don't know! I would not let them tell me! Now, if you kill me, Martha dies. And if you fly away, Martha also dies. But if you kill the bat, Martha lives. There we go.
Okay, so Lex says the name Martha 3 more times, and he reiterates to Superman that Superman will fight Batman. Let's see if we're close to finishing this scene.
And now God bends to my will. Now the cameras are waiting at your ship for the world to see the holes in the holy. Yes, the Almighty comes clean about how dirty he is when it counts. To save Martha, bring me the head of the bat.
So Lex has this line, God bends to my will, that is really good. I love it. And it ties back to what Luthor was talking about at the start of the scene, comparing Superman to God. It's really strong dialogue. Unfortunately, Luthor goes on with an attempt to sell the fight, it seems. He's trying to generate excitement, and it's as if he's doing this for the audience.
Mother of God! Would you look at the time? When you came here, you had an hour. Now it's less.
remainder of this scene just tries too hard to have an epic feel to it. What doesn't help is that the last piece of dialogue we hear is Lex saying that Superman has less than an hour to kill Batman. Superman being short on time to accomplish his mission is a detail we can get later when Superman is confronting Batman. It's really not something that should end the scene. Also, the last image of the scene isn't as strong since it depicts Superman standing tall while Lex flies away on his helicopter. Okay, so we remember how this scene begins, with Lex comparing Superman to God.
God is all-powerful. He cannot be all good. And if he is all good, then he cannot be all-powerful. And neither can you be.
Okay, same setup as before. Now let's see how an alternate cut for this scene would look.
They need to see the fraud you are. With their eyes. The blood on your hands.
What have you done?
And tonight, they will. Yes. Because you, my friend, have a date. Across the bay. God versus man. Day versus night. Son of Krypton versus Bat of Gotham.
So we can hear how much better this flows now without all that unnecessary dialogue in there. When Lex says too much, all that unimportant stuff takes the emphasis away from the important stuff, and we don't want that to happen. We want the important dialogue to take center stage.
You think I'll fight him for you?
Yes, I do. I think you will fight for that special lady in your life.
She's safe on the ground.
Close, but I am not talking about Lois. No.
We cut Superman's line in which he asks Lex, "How about you?" because the previous line has Superman saying, "She's safe on the ground," which makes it sound as if Superman is asking Lex if Lex is safe on the ground. Since Superman's threat toward Lex here isn't well done, it can just be cut, and the scene flows better without it.
Every boy's special lady is his mother. I don't know! I would not let them tell me!
We don't need Lex talking about demons or making connections to witches or talking about fire.
Fire! 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 Fire!
Lex can simply flash those photographs and start throwing them at a stunned Superman's feet. Nothing needs to be said here to get the point across. We, the audience, can put it together, and we can see Superman put it together, so we can keep it simple.
Now, if you kill me, Martha dies. And if you fly away, Martha also dies. But if you kill the bat, Martha lives. There we go. There we go. And now God bends to my will.
By ending the scene with Lex speaking of God bending to his will, we're coming back full circle to what Lex was talking about at the start of the scene, comparing Superman to God. And rather than ending the scene with Lex telling Superman to go find Batman, which is a repetition of what Lex already told Superman to do twice already in the original cut of this scene, we're now ending with Lex placing himself above God, with Superman on his knees, staring down at the photos of his mother in peril and helpless to do anything about it, which is much stronger dialogue and imagery to end this scene with. And that's all for now.